Today, I wanted to talk about really the power we have as empaths, intuitives, psychics, extrasensory people. I think that throughout the years that I've been doing this, many people realize they have this gift, often think they're weird or something's wrong with them, then start tapping into the gifts. Hey, Kyler. And start realizing, wow, like this is real, and you start connecting with other people who have similar gifts, and you start feeling not so alone. But meanwhile, we have all been deeply programmed in lack. And so our brain has been wired in such a way to believe that we are powerless, and that the only way change can happen is if something external happens. So we wait on the government to make laws that make us feel better, or we wait for just something in the external to happen to give ourselves permission to feel better. And then quantum physics comes along, and in the last 20 years, especially the last 10 and 5 years, we've had a lot of hey Lori, we've had a lot of teachings and deeper understanding about how this actually works, how the observer affects the reality that it's observing. Hey Roxanne. And that we actually have way more influence. It's not that the universe, hi Nicole, it's not that the universe is a machine that we're all subject to. The real truth of the matter is we are the ones creating, we are the ones affecting the universe based on what we are focused on and how we are focused. And so we've started to really dive deep into that understanding, and there's been a lot of people coming out as intuitives and empaths, and even offering their services or just sharing their insights, tuning in. But I feel like even as a whole, there's still this belief that we are somehow subject to the external reality. And if we believe we're subject to the external reality, then we are. We give our power, quite literally, to the external. Or in the case of a lot of empaths, I believe we give it to the collective, because we feel the collective in some way, shape, or form. All of us have different ways that we pick up energy, but we feel what's going on. And often for an empath, it's very easy to just sort of morph into, to really overly identify, I should say, with whatever they're feeling and believe they're powerless to their feeling. So the whole idea of empowering us as empaths is to realize that we can quickly shift out of any emotion. We're gonna feel, we're going to pick up things, and it's not about trying to shield ourselves or block ourselves from picking up things or feeling things. It's having the tools of how to shift quickly and tune right back in continually to our source, which is, again, that a belief that there's enough and that we are enough, and that at any given moment we can tune into love. We can get clarity about a direction to move. We can get clarity for whatever we need in our lives. And that is what we are doing here. And the more that we learn to master it, hey Brianna, the more that we learn to master this, the more that we put that signal out, we strengthen the signal of what it looks like to be an empowered, sovereign being. And the more that we detach from the external in the sense of use it only as a reflection, use it only as a reference point, but not as what is controlling us or what has power over us. And what came to me the other day really strongly, I've been tuning in for a long time to this sort of a multidimensional network that we are all tuned into. And I started teaching about it in my 6-week abundance training, the beta test. And then I just got a whole pause on it because it was like a whole piece needed to come through, and I wasn't in the place to fully understand it. And I've been diving deep into it for quite a while and just tuning into that. And what has come through so strongly to me is that, just like I said in the email announcing this live, just like the internet, the amazing thing about the internet is that suddenly we had access to people around the world in an instant. And we started realizing how connected we all are. And once we started sharing experiences and realizing that others are out there like us, and started just seeing a bigger picture of what's going on, what happened is people's reality started to expand, and people started not feeling so alone. In some ways, it has caused a lot of scary things to happen. The internet can be used for horrific things, and it can be used for amazing things. It can be used for community. It can be used for information to get to people who would otherwise be ignorant of certain things. But I think one of the main things we realized is how much we are all creating this. And we've started to really, I think, see through things like the media and realize story is always manipulated. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be for an evil intent, but people will always shift or manipulate a story in their favor according to their beliefs and their agenda and what they want. And all of that, the idea of my cat's over here, so if my phone falls, that's what it is. The idea is that when we start believing, we've started realizing how powerful, how powerful the stories are, and how story is truly the fuel for humanity. It's the language of the human heart. And if you can manipulate the story, you can manipulate the masses. If you can get people in fear, they'll do things or sacrifice things that they wouldn't normally do or sacrifice. And so, sorry, my cat's being wild. If you hear him meowing in the background. So what is happening now is we're needing to move to that next step of, it's not just about the fact that we're connected, but it's the fact that we are sovereign individual beings. Hey, Sandra. And that we have the power to come to our own conclusions about what storyline we are actually creating and tuning into and believing. And where our empathic abilities come in online, and our intuitive abilities, and our ability to tune in to the non-physical, it's coming in as an incredibly important piece of the puzzle right now, because we need discernment. Because it is easy to be deceived right now. It is so easy to be deceived. If we are just constantly looking to the external, like, okay, how many people are believing this? And if the majority of people believe it, then that must be right. And we begin to feel like if we're the only ones picking up on something or feeling something, that unless we have people that confirm it, we are crazy. And I think that it's important to remember, even according to the DSM, that you're only considered crazy if you can't function in this reality. So someone could have every single sign of being schizophrenic or whatever it is, just not in touch with this reality. But if you can function in the 3D, if you can function in the collective reality, you can track with it, you're not crazy. And I think that's really important, because you see a lot of people who are incredibly intuitive and who tune into that, and then we start breaking out of the matrix, and you can start feeling like you're going insane. And I think this is where a lot of people, a lot of empaths and a lot of intuitives shut down their gifts, because they're like, whoa, I see too deeply in, or I don't know which storyline to follow, or I don't know if what I'm seeing is actually true. Because yes, we can be manipulated even in our meditations. And because there are principalities and entities and belief systems that are at play, which all of it at the core are just programs. It's like a computer it can be programmed with almost anything. You can program your computer to do a multitude of different things, to reflect a multitude of different things. And it's not that a program is right or wrong in and of itself. It's just that the program is either beneficial or it's not beneficial. It either is a tool that helps or it harms. And that is where we have to use our discernment. And I see a lot of empaths, including myself, as I've been on this journey, where we start getting empowered, but then we kind of get scared of our gifts, because the implications of what we can actually do is extremely vast. And we're used to believing that there's the power out there and that protects us. And there is a sort of comfort in being a victim and in feeling like, well, it's something that's controlling me, or I don't have any actual power to do anything here. And so it kind of gives us an excuse to not do anything. But also, like I said, there's fear involved, fear in using our gifts, fear in tuning in, fear of, you hear people say all the time, well, don't open your third eye, because you can open yourself up to things that you wouldn't have otherwise opened up to. And me growing up in Christianity, there was always this taboo on using your gifts, and yet the Bible talks about these kind of gifts all throughout it. And so the discernment comes in is not that the gift is wrong or bad. It's being able to discern what is actually going on. Is this helpful or harmful? Is this a storyline I want to believe? Is this a storyline that feels in alignment with truth, with abundance, with love, with restoration? Because as I've pointed out so often, there's two primary programs that we are operating within, either lack or abundance. And within each of those, there's a multitude of different ways you can play out the story of lack. And there's a multitude of different ways you can play out the story of abundance. But you're either operating in one or the other. And so when we can begin to discern what matrix we are in and how we are, what we're primarily believing, what belief is activated as we do any action that we're doing or as we tune into anything we're doing, that's how we discern. And so discernment is huge right now because you are meant to use your gifts and it's time to really use them because there is power in the collective, there's power in numbers, and whether we like it or not, we are sort of playing that game. When the majority tips to the majority of people believing something slightly different, the timeline shifts, the collective shifts, and it's like a mind virus. It goes into people's mind and they start believing it regardless, and because it becomes the collective reality. And as soon as like I said, as soon as it tips, the masses tip slightly in favor of abundance, our primary core program changes about what we believe we can do. And so going back to the illustration of the internet, what I have seen very clearly is that, and most people who are psychics or intuitives are very aware of what we would call the astral network or the astral grid, the astral realms. And you could almost see this as, the realm of, think of the realm of how computer programmers program all the code. It's like that, except we're doing that with our emotions and our thoughts and all the symbols that make up our reality. So this entire world, the language of our matrix is symbols. And those symbols all have collective meaning. So, and those meanings can change. Church, for example. Think of the word church and how charged it is. Even like the sign of a cross or an actual church. Or chakras or anything, the ocean. Any symbols, and it's what like Carl Jung talked about, universal symbols that we can all dream of and that have collective meaning. We all also have our individual meanings. So when we are interacting with the collective grid or the astral network, we are interacting all the time with those symbols and those collective meanings because we're all a part of that. We are all connected to that place where we are co-creating realities and giving things meaning. And that is what I would call the pre-manifested realm. It's where our source is, our power is. And that's why there's so much evidence of how powerful it is to do dream work, to do meditation. When you visualize something, it becomes more real because you're firing the neural pathways and you're changing things. And so when you think about all that, the astral network is kind of like really a internet. Think of the World Wide Web, except for rather than being worldwide where you can connect to anyone on this planet, it's a multiverse and multidimensional. You can connect to anyone, anywhere, any dimension, any reality instantly. The same way that I can send a message to my friend in Italy and she gets it instantly. Or we can FaceTime, same way. The same concept is at play. And because we finally have the internet, we can begin to have something to show us an example of what it is that we do, of what we are. And I really have been getting the message very strongly that the next level for us, especially for empaths, intuitives, psychics, all of us that have a different role here that we're playing, is to start really utilizing that network because we're on it anyway. Whether you know it or not, you have a very specific energy signature in the astrals. And a lot of times because we are unconscious of beliefs we have or we haven't integrated our shadow, a lot of times we are doing things on the astrals. A lot of times we can be the monster on the astrals. We can be doing really dark stuff, especially when we feel powerless. Because when we feel extremely powerless and we don't evoke our power consciously, it's in our subconscious mind that we attempt to find our power. And so often that involves overpowering things or creating things without even realizing it, voting for things, I should say, without even realizing it, that are not for humanity. And so it's really important that we start tuning in consciously to the astral network and programming it with abundance, allowing ourselves to fully visualize and tune into a world where the masses have adopted the program of abundance. And that means that every individual is empowered, that they know that they can make a choice, and that they can unplug their focus from lack. And by doing that, we already know this works. There's been study after study after study that has proven that when we focus on something else, we feed that thing, and it starts becoming more and more of a reality. And so what I think of is I use the example of, like I said, a lot of empaths, intuitives, psychics, extrasensory people want to utilize their gifts. But when you start thinking, okay, well, I'm going to do an online business, or I'm gonna do sessions, or it's so steeped in lack. It's so steeped in that world of lack, and it's controlled by the principalities of the old matrix, which is a very specific kind of personality type and it does involve having to prove yourself at a core level. And even the internet, it's so controlled by algorithms that now it's becoming about you have to get a certain formula to even be seen. And what happens is we can begin to, again, believe that we have to do something out here and affect this here in order to actually communicate to who we're meant to communicate with, or to connect with who we're meant to connect with. But the truth of the matter is, our universe, how the astral network works, and how true manifestation works is on synchronicity, is on symbols, is on following your intuition and following your heart and following the energy of abundance. And it's a different way of navigating, like I've been talking about. It is completely different. And we have to unprogram ourselves from navigating our reality in the way that the world says to do it. And it can be really hard because that's connected to survival. It's connected to money. And money flows in a very specific way. But here's the interesting thing. Even money itself on this planet has its own consciousness. And that consciousness is made up of everything that every human on the planet is thinking about money. So money itself is neutral. What we program money to mean is what it means. And so again, we have to take a step back and reprogram what we think of money and what our relationship to money. And I think for a lot of empaths and intuitives, there's a sense of hatred towards money or a fear of money because it is also, they say, it's not even the root of all evil. The quote is actually the love of money is the root of all evil. Not that money is the root of all evil. Money is neutral. It's just a tool. But when we start believing in the tool and giving power to the tool, we literally are giving our power away to the tool. And that's how we become a slave to the tool itself. And so I feel really called to just wake us all up and remind us that we have so much power that we're not even utilizing. And if every single one of us who are awake, even to the extent that we are awake right now, decide to spend, I keep talking about this, but at least 3 minutes a day tuning in to the reality of abundance. And to that, if we said, okay, I want to tune into what it feels like in this world when every single person on this planet, their most deepest, most vulnerable need is met. So for some people, it might be the courage to die. They're suffering and they just need to finally let go and release from their body. For some people, it's they need water or they need food. For some people, it's that it's a deep relationship wound that they need to receive love and to be healed. Whatever it is, some people it's their house burned down and they need a place to stay. There is always a solution. There is always the answer to the need being met right there. But we are tuned in to lack. And what happens when we see tragedy or wounds and hurt on the planet, we just go into that mindset often of, oh, the world is just a horrible place. Or people are so bad. Or what's wrong with the world? What's wrong with people? Satan is in control. Blah, 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 blah. We give that so much power rather than actually, I want to tune in. I want to use the one power I know I have, which is that I can actually affect the reality I'm observing by what I'm observing. So I want to observe and tune into a reality where people's needs are met. And I'm including myself in that reality, because the other problem that a lot of empaths and intuitives have, especially empaths, is not including themselves in the equation. So it's like they become entirely invisible, and it's like it becomes about helping others and doing things for others. Meanwhile, their needs are not met, and it creates another void and a deep need, which often those needs, we seek to meet them unconsciously. So that's when we become the monsters on the astrals, and we don't even realize, because we're starving for love, starving to be witnessed, starving to be felt and heard, starving for someone to actually consider us. And it causes more lack. It is not solving the problem. It's just, again, it involves sacrifice. It's taking something and giving it here, rather than, how about let's multiply it and give it to everyone? Because the greatest need we have on the planet is for everyone's needs to be met. Because if your most vulnerable need was met, if where you were wounded in your life or in your childhood, where you started believing in lack and believing that you weren't enough or there's not enough, if that was healed and your brain started believing that you could have your needs met, and then you started moving towards getting those needs met, you create more abundance on the planet. And even the worst villain on the planet, even the scumbag people of the earth, if their deepest emotional needs were met, if they were healed, the world would shift. They would stop doing what they're doing. They would stop doing those things that incredibly hurt people. And what happens when we're in the worthiness game, it's like, well, those people are bad, so they don't deserve anything, and they deserve to be punished. In other words, their wound deserves to be compounded, and we should move the resources here. So all it is just creating lack in a different space, or emphasizing lack where it already is, rather than let's heal the wound, let's meet the need, let's show compassion, let's meet the need, period. And so meeting the need, we have to realize, those of us who can tune in and who are aware of the unseen reality, we have to really fully step into that power, because we're hypocrites if we don't. If we say we know there's this unseen realm, we can feel it, we have experienced it, but we actually are kind of too afraid to do anything in that realm because we don't have discernment, we're actually abdicating our power. And really, if we were to say, okay, the real online business, and we can connect, just like the internet solved a lot of people's problems in the sense that they can work from home. A lot of people have been able to work from home, connect with people they've long lost, relatives or parents, or information that they never had that gave them the tool to the next step they needed to become successful. The internet has made a lot of people incredibly abundant. Think of the next level of that. The internet's old, it's past tense. We are moving to the next level, which already exists, which is we have access to anything we need, including assistance from other realms, whether it's extraterrestrial, interdimensional, interterrestrial, angels, whatever it is. And yes, all of that includes a shadow side, because it's a mirror. So there's the lack matrix of all of those things, lower vibrational entities, and there's the abundance matrix of all of those things, higher vibrational entities. And we can tune in at any given moment. The problem is, a lot of people who have gifts are tuned into lack. And that's why opening your third eye before you're ready, yes, you can open a door. If your shadow isn't integrated, you can open a door to have your shadow come right in and stare you at the face, and it can be the scariest thing you've ever witnessed in your life. And then what people do is shut down. Oh, well, I don't want to mess with that realm. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have that kind of power because I don't have discernment. And there is a certain truth to, sometimes you're not ready. Just like you wouldn't give the two-year-old the keys to your car and say, go drive. That would be extremely reckless. And the same involves these kind of tools. We have to know what we're doing. And part of knowing what we're doing, as I said in the beginning of this live, is being able to distinguish, to discern between lack and abundance, and know, okay, what primary program am I operating from? And to be able to tell the difference when I'm operating in lack and when I'm operating in abundance, and just not make decisions based on lack. Don't take action based on lack, because action created in lack only creates more lack, or action inspired by lack only creates more lack. If we all committed to tuning in to the unseen realms and just putting our signal out, the whole ask and you shall receive, the needs that you know in your current reality, because there's nothing necessarily that you can do about someone that's on the other side of the world other than pray for them and imagine the world where their needs are met. Just tuning into it for 3 minutes, like I'm tuning into the reality of what it feels like for people's needs to be met. Because as you do that, and as I do it, and as we all tune into that, we create a strong bandwidth, just like the internet. The signal gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and we are signaling to all this universe and multiverses what we need. Ask and you shall receive. It will be met. Because there already exists a reality in which everyone's needs are met. We're just not observing it, so we're not experiencing it on a day-to-day basis. So if we committed to that, so not only does that help the people that you can't maybe directly help, but if you're aware of what your actual immediate needs are, first and foremost being aware of your needs. What are your needs? Your deepest needs, your most emotional needs, what do you need to be more balanced? And think in terms of your Trinity. What's going on in your relationship with your Trinity, your body, your mind, and your heart? Are you in fellowship with yourself, or are you in war? And what parts of you are at war? What do you need in order to heal that war? Because that war is the result of trauma that happened at some point in your life that gave you the message that either you are bad, or there's not enough, or you're not enough. And so you don't deserve, and therefore you should be punished. Therefore, love should be withheld from you. And that's why we unplug ourselves from receiving, and we end up creating a block. And then we believe that we deserve that block. And then the more evidence comes up that need is not met, the more we believe in a reality in which we're not worthy of having our needs met. We must be bad. There must be something wrong with us. We must deserve this. So you see how it works and how the lack matrix plays on itself. So in the same way, if you were aware of your needs, and even the needs you cannot meet yourself, we're not capable of meeting all of our needs, but we are capable of being aware of what our needs are, and we're capable of saying, universe, I allow myself to receive them, and I'm just going to trust you. I'm going to let go of the how that need is met, and I'm just going to trust that it will be met. And then show up and expect the universe to meet the need, because that is what it will do. Just like when you get online and you're ordering something and you put in, I'm going to order these pants that are size 8, the universe is going to give you a size 8 pair of pants. You don't have to worry about the how it's going to come to you. But you first have to be clear. If you don't put in the right size that you need and you get a size 10, well, that's on you. The universe isn't going to just figure out the details. You need to know. And that's why we have the ability to tune in, not only to what we need, but when you have more of an intuitive nature, often you're very aware of what dynamics are around you and what's needed in the dynamics, where there's lack, where people might be wounded and not healed, where they might be just blind to something that they're not seeing. And so that is where your gifts come in. And this is where I believe the network of empaths, intuitives, healers, as we all tune in and make that co-collective agreement to bring heaven on earth, to tune into heaven on earth, so that becomes a stronger signal on the planet. We actually are a multi-dimensional technology. We are state-of-the-art technology. We are the next level internet. And I've talked before in the past about astral networking and how we can run our whole business, which is the business of living. Think of business. Business only exists to meet a need. And then when those needs don't need to be met, when the demands of the people change, business has to change to meet the needs, or they'll go extinct. And that is the next level, is people like us, in terms of the deeper needs of humanity that are needing to be met to make the biggest shift on the grid. And so the more of us that tune in, put our signal up, say we're here, be very clear about what you do and what your gifts are, and offer them on the internet, on the multiverse internet. Connect to the astral network, show what you are, integrate your shadow, have your signal strong, and you will. The problem is most of us are just cloaked, especially empaths, because we have not felt safe. to be seen, and because we feel things so intensely. So we've cloaked and we've shielded ourselves. And that has often caused a huge block in the astral network from things coming to you that need to come to you, or from you connecting to the other parts of your technology, which is us. It's the larger family of empaths and intuitives. It's your tribe, so to speak. And you don't even have to be face to face with your tribe. You can feel entirely supported just by tuning in. And if we all make the intention, or set the intention, especially as empaths, that we're going to decloak to each other on the astral grid. It doesn't even have to be about one-on-one relationships, because here's another thing that I feel like is very important. I think a lot of us, that's not true for everyone, but a lot of us empaths and intuitives and healers are being called to kind of hermit out, to not invest in a ton of relationships. That's what we've been doing in the past. We've always had someone or some deep relationships or some deep kind of something and involving someone else that we're deeply connected to and all of our energies going towards. It is time that we tune in and priestess out, like activate your inner priestess or your inner priest, and or however, whatever you want to call it, if those words are triggering to you, however you want to call it. But we are meant to go within, and part of our gifts involve having to tune in and having to have a sacred sanctuary where we can do that. And your sanctuary is your electromagnetic field. And I think that we are meant to, of course, have relationships with people, but it is time to be incredibly discerning about who we are allowing in to our lives in terms of what we're giving our energy to. Because at this point, we all need people who will strengthen us, people who are also strong, not people who just have desperate needs that feel powerless and we feel like we have to be the ones to meet their needs. And that served us in the past because it showed us what our gifts are, and it helped us to have a focus and a channel for what we are. But it also has created a lot of codependency, and meanwhile we've been cloaked. So we haven't been able to show what our needs are. But as each of us, other empaths and intuitives and healers, strengthen our signal and show and allow what we are to be online on the astral network by tuning in, by doing the internal work. That is your work. That is the most important work you can be doing, is tuning in, getting clarity, allowing yourself to receive energetically. And your gifts are just being tapped. I truly believe if we were all to practice more tuning in, we would get so much insight and clarity about what's going on the astral network in terms of what our tribe is doing and how supported we are, and how it's just like it's go time. Everything we need is right here. We just have to uncloak and receive it. And we have to trust that we can, and we have to have strong boundaries. That doesn't mean keeping people separate. It doesn't mean not coming into the awareness that we're all one, but boundaries are key, because it's your energy field needs to be strong and protected. And I'm sorry, but the way that we've been doing it in the past has weakened our energy field. It has caused us to believe that we are the ones that have to be there for other people, that they can't do it themselves, and we allow our energy field to be drained, and it causes more lack. It is not in our best interest. And the problem, a big problem I've seen, I know a lot of you in this group have been raised in a religious background, and as well-meaning as the whole concept of, if someone asks for your tunic, give him your shirt as well, or whatever. I don't know how the saying goes. But in other words, like always sacrificing yourself and pulling yourself out and saying yes to anyone who needs you, and don't be selfish, be there for others. I don't know about you, but for me, when I was really steeped in Christian culture, that compounded my problem tenfold. My problem of my issue with not having boundaries, my issue with not taking care of myself. I just let anyone and everyone who needed me take full space up in my life, and I just neglected myself. And then I tried to get my needs met through the back door, and I never understood why I felt empty all the time, especially if I was supposed to, have Christ's love within me overflowing. And yet I always felt like I was never enough, because it is never enough, because you're not meant to be the one who fixes people And I think the strongest thing that we can do, what I've realized as I've gotten more and more clarity, is the stronger I am, the more I actually help people, because they don't need me to do it for them. They need to see an example of someone who loves themselves, someone who can have a big heart and an open heart, but can also say no, and can also have discernment. And discernment is key. That is our new business strategy. I think there's a trillion things right now that we can be distracted by. There's a million things that we can allow our focus to go towards. And I think the most important thing we can do is all of us get very focused on what we are here to do. We are here to build heaven on earth. We are here to create the signal for heaven on earth. That's why you came. That's why you entered into so much contrast. That's why you know inside and out what the lack matrix feels like, because now you have the blueprint of what's needed. And at this point, all we have to do is allow it in. We just have to allow it in. And that means decloaking, and that means trusting our tribe and really connecting, whether it's astrally or physically, with people who will actually benefit us. We benefit them, they benefit us. No longer this, I'm just here to pour myself out as a sacrifice to you. Because in our collective, the story of Jesus is key. The final sacrifice. He came into the lack matrix and said, you guys believe in a reality, and you're living in a reality where someone always has to sacrifice, where you have to prove your worth, where you have to live this almost unattainable perfection, or else you're gonna die. And so what I'll do is I'll just take that punishment that you all believe you have to have, because the lack matrix has caused humanity to believe that they need to be punished. We have lost trust with ourselves, and that, I think, is why Jesus was key for our human evolution, because that is like, we have an example, whether you believe in it in that it actually literally happened or not. We had to tell a story. I truly believe it literally happened, but we had to have that story in our mind of what it means to have a final, to get over with the lack matrix, to quit sacrificing, to have the final sacrifice, and to have forgiveness and be done with it. And that's why the Bible talks about it's grace, and it's a free gift. You're not doing anything to earn heaven. You have to just receive it. And so many of us have been trying to still earn it. We believe, well, I can't receive love, I can't receive heaven, I can't have my needs met until I do this, this, and this, until I prove this, this, and this. But it requires humility to be able to receive heaven on earth, to be able to have your needs met. It requires humility, and not in the sense of believing you're less than. I think that word has even been damaged, but in a sense of just truly understanding that it's okay to receive. This entire universe is based on giving and receiving. There is nothing wrong with receiving, but because we've had people that have taken more than they even need, and there's been greed at the core of our lack matrix, we also have this program about receiving, that people who receive are somehow like, it's like less than. Like, it's good to be a giver, but not a receiver. But giving and receiving are the same thing. It's the same energy. The brain doesn't know the difference. And if you block receiving, you block giving. It's nonsensical. And that's why I think it's connected to pride. It's connected to this idea that I don't need anything, or I am above that. I can get all my needs met myself. I don't need to receive. Whatever it is, or I can earn it. It's like I earn my right to receive. And that is why things are so messed up in the lack matrix. And even the most physical, tangible example we have of giving and receiving is sex itself. That's what creates life. And look at what that has become on our planet in so many ways. That we have had this deep program of some sort of rejection of what it means to receive and what it means to give. And how to say yes to what we need to receive and no to what we don't want to receive. And that's why boundaries are an important part of this. And I've heard a lot of, in a lot of the new agey or even just spiritual movement, there's all this talk about we're one and let all things in and da-da-da-da. And I understand the concept of that. But as an empath, I'm sorry, my whole inner being is like, no, we need to learn how also to keep things out. Because letting certain things in that are not meant to be in can destroy us from the inside out, can literally rot us from the inside out. And so it's important that we allow ourselves to, hold on, move it. Sorry. He wants attention so bad right now. I don't know what it is about when I do lives. My cats act like I'm depriving them. It can literally, when we let things in that are not meant to be in, it can destroy our trust with life itself. And so no, it's not meant that we just let everything in. We are meant to have boundaries, and we are meant to have discernment, and we are meant to say no to certain things and yes to other things. It doesn't mean we can't accept that those things exist on the planet, and it doesn't mean that we can't allow ourselves to witness it without judgment. But we're not meant to let everyone and everything in and just say yes to everything. And I have a real problem with that teaching when it comes to what does that, because I get the concept, but what does it mean moment to moment, day by day, relationship to relationship? It is meant, we are absolutely meant to have boundaries with people. And I think anyone who teaches otherwise doesn't really understand what it's like to have your boundaries 100% fully violated and to be in a place where you let anything and everything in, and how painful that is. So yeah. So I want to end this by saying, here's my challenge to you. In the 3 minutes a day, if you could at least spend 3 minutes, and I'm talking about this is what the planet needs. Remember when we go back to the idea of business. Business is when people offer a service that's meant to help, that's meant to meet a need. And the problem with business, it's been so seeped in lack that there's greed, and there's people who take control of certain technologies, for example, or the algorithms online, and it causes all these sort of gateways that we have to go through, and it's part of that worthiness game, like, oh, I have to pay these people and bow to these people and do this. But no, bypass all of it. Go directly to the source of all sources, where we are programming things in the astral network. For 3 minutes a day, imagine your whole energy field full of light, and that nothing is in that energy field but pure source energy. And from that space in your heart, give your own self a light bath, where you see light coming from your feet to your head to your feet, all in the whole sphere around you, lighting up, clearing out your chakras, allowing energy to move, allowing chi to flow through your body. And spend a couple minutes, or a couple seconds, whatever it is, tuning into the abundance matrix, which is, what would it feel like for all the needs to be met? And start with yourself. What would it feel like if my deepest needs were met? What would it feel like if my emotional needs were met? If I think at the deepest level, what would it feel like if I were alive inside, and if I felt engaged and excited to be here, and I felt that I had worth, and I am meant to be here, and I had a purpose, and it felt good to create, to make love to life. Tune into that reality of just what it feels like. And then there's 4 things energetically that I think if we all started doing, our signal would get extremely powerful on the planet. My sister actually told me this the other day, and I was like, brilliant, I'm using it. Find something to love for just even a few seconds in the day. What do you truly love? What do you truly love? And just allow yourself to love it, whatever it is. Don't try to love something you don't actually love in this moment, but just what do you truly love, and allow that feeling to take you over. What do I truly love? And then what do I appreciate? Allow yourself to really appreciate something about your life, and let that appreciation fill up your energy field, and just allow it to fill you up, and that energy to really be strong in your electromagnetic field, what you appreciate. And then allow yourself to give something. And you can either give energetically, like through a prayer for someone else, or like just holding them in a light where you see them as powerful and loved, or a physical way, like allow yourself to tune in with your discernment. What can I give today? What can I give someone else, or others, or the planet? Or myself, or others of the planet, but what can I give, truly give? Because remember, we are meant to give and receive, and when we stop one or the other, we stop the flow of life. So what can I give, and then what can I receive today? What can I allow myself to receive? And I know for a lot of empaths, that's the hard one, because it immediately brings up worth issues, worthiness issues, and that's why it's an important challenge to give yourself. So what can I love? What can I appreciate? What can I give? And what can I receive? Every day, those 4 things, the most important 4 things that we can do as we tune in to abundance and allow those things to fill up our whole energy field. And then remind yourself that you are a signal in the matrix, and you are signaling what to the matrix what to reflect back to you. And those core beliefs that you have are the primary things you are going to have reflected back to you in any given moment. The more you tune into abundance, the more the universe will put you in alignment with other people who are abundant, who feel abundant, and who are tuning into abundance. And I really see doorways opening where we're going to be networking with others, that their gifts blend perfectly with ours, whether it is just purely in the astrals and we don't even, there is so much power we have there, it's ridiculous. We are reprogramming the matrix. We've taken over. We are infiltrated in every single realm, reality, dimension, business, power, principality. We're infiltrated. It's like a stalemate right now between the light and the dark. So we have nothing to fear. We have infiltrated everywhere. There is not 1 ounce of darkness that has not been witnessed by the light, that is not in the awareness of the light, that we are not overcoming, and that hasn't already been overcome. So we just have to allow that in. And it's an incredibly powerful time, and it's an incredibly exciting time. But the trick is we have to stay focused. It's so important that we stay focused and we don't allow our energy to be spread in a million different directions. We don't allow guilt and shame and manipulation, which is all part of the lack matrix, to control us and to determine how we act and what we do because we feel guilty or we feel ashamed or we feel scared or we're being emotionally manipulated by others. That time is over. It is so important that you take up your power, your light body, and allow yourself to move in this reality, in the kingdom, in heaven on earth. Allow your electromagnetic field to be heaven. And you may have times where you're going to have times where you don't feel heaven on earth, but that's the key of always tuning in. If you knew at the deepest level that you're loved no matter what, that your needs can be met no matter what, that no one's withholding love from you, that you are loved, you are accepted, you are worthy, and that the universe wants to give to you, because the collective asking is for restoration. And that is what's been going on this planet for a very long time. It takes a long time for programs to be changed. And we are at a precipice right now. And it's an exciting time. And I think we need to utilize the Astral Network. We need to utilize the unseen realms in our benefit. And yes, those unseen realms also have incredible darkness, and there's people using those same realms to manipulate the matrix for lack. But who cares? Because we can manipulate it, we can use it for good, and we can use it as a tool. So it doesn't have power apart from the power we give it. And it's important to remember that all the power is here. All the power is in what we focus on. And as we get more discerning, I literally saw when I was tuning in, and when I was tuning into what I should talk about next in this live, in a live here, and what the universe showed me is that as you turn on and I turn on and all of us start turning on and start really like honing in on our gifts and our skills, the spirit will be poured out, and you are going to have epiphanies and revelations that you never even saw coming. And you have so much to give, so much to give. But for so long, a lot of us have felt sort of pigeonholed in our little corners and felt powerless and felt unseen and felt isolated. No more. Like, we are stepping up, and there's a lot of us here. And so if we committed to at least 3 minutes a day. Someone said, Abraham Hicks says 17 seconds, which I think is great. I don't care what the time is, just do it. Just more and more and more. Allow yourself to tune into abundance. Love something, appreciate something, give something, receive something every single day. And the interesting thing about that is the 4 is the number of foundations and building blocks. And so if you can do at least those 4 things, you are setting the building blocks for a new way of living in this reality. And it's also important to remember, this is the last thing I'm going to say, is the news, I don't care what side of the news it is, whatever political party is in control of whatever outlet, and all of those things, it is still so past tense. The mainstream is not talking about what's actually going on the deepest levels and how this reality actually works. It's still playing the whole, you have to vote to create change. And yes, I think voting's important, and it does have an effect, obviously, but the real vote that we have is in our focus, what we give our energy to, what we give our time to, what we give our prayers to, what we give our worry to. That is the real vote. You are voting every moment. So vote consciously. vote consciously, and that's how we actually affect change. So I also
planet.
just wanted to mention that I'm going to be hosting a 3-day live workshop, an online workshop on this very topic, on the Astral Network, how to actually activate your signal in the Astral Network and turn on the multi-dimensional internet that's multi-universal, multi-dimensional, and how we can really start utilizing our gifts to connect with our tribe, to strengthen our signal, to bring heaven on earth, to create abundance in our lives, and to really get out of the lack matrix fully, because we're not subject to it. And I truly believe it's time for those of us who came to do this to step out of the lack matrix entirely and realize that we can do business in a whole different way through a whole different matrix. So it requires learning how to navigate differently, learning how to be online on the Astral Network, how to create our signal strongly, and how to have discernment, how to navigate our way through that. But we do this anyway. This is just a way of doing it consciously rather than unconsciously. And also, when we do it unconsciously, we can be used in ways that we're not aware we're being used for the lack matrix. So I'm really excited about this workshop. It's going to be November 29th, 30th, and the 1st, and it'll just be a couple hours each of those days. It'll be held in a private Facebook group, so it'll literally be taught live. And if for some reason you want to join the class, but those days don't work for you, or you can't make it to every live, it'll be available to you indefinitely. So you'll be added to the group. You can watch the lives later if you're not live. And you can also pre-submit your questions, so I can still address your questions in the live, because there'll be time in every session for question and answers. And also, when you sign up for the month of November, there's going to be 4 emails sent out before the workshop, and each of those emails are going to be going into a little more detail about what we'll be talking about, and it'll have some journal prompts for you and some questions to ask yourself to really get prepared for the class, for the workshop. So when the workshop begins, you'll already have sort of a lot of pre-information. So I'm opening up registration today, and I'm going to try to just not limit the spots too much, but I don't want to have so many people in there that it's overwhelming. So I'll probably shut down registration in a week. And like I said, I'm not necessarily putting a cap on the number. I'm just going to watch it and make sure it's not too many people. So you have a week to register, and I think this is going to be one of the coolest workshops I've ever done. This is the information that I've been wanting to teach for a while, my 6-week abundance course, which will be available January 1st. Will also be much more detailed into this for those of you who actually are creating a business. But this is more the astral realm of our business and how we navigate via abundance, how we navigate and create. Remember, business is about meeting a need. It's about seeing a need and being able to meet the need. So this is using our gifts to meet the deeper need that's going on the planet, and how to make ourselves visible and available in a way that we can bypass all the BS and the algorithms and the internet and all that stuff that we often sell out to and pay money to, that is not actually getting us directly to the people we need to be connected with. So this is a way of actually connecting with our network and lighting up the grid, lighting up the matrix of abundance, and really fueling the signal for multidimensionality on the planet. So I'm really excited about this. Can't wait to connect with you, and I hope you guys are doing well. Much love.